At a show in January, audience members spoke out about the rapid rise in anti-immigrant sentiment and the sense that immigrants who are here legally, even naturalized citizens, aren't necessarily safe anymore.
They talk about it as though it's like, just like sign the papers, just like do the thing.
This is Kyle Cameron.
And then like at every single turn, they will make it more difficult. They will dangle it in front of you like something they can take away. They will take it away.
The Verbatim Salon is a serious venture about serious issues, but there are lighter moments too, as when actress Della Mesqueñar recounts a Russian man's first memory of encountering American culture as a 15-year-old growing up in St. Petersburg.
I go and buy some beers and a pack of cigarettes. It's Russia in the 90s, right? And we're watching Dawson's Creek. And it's a different planet. It is so profoundly, so, mystically different from the world outside your window.
But often the storybook version of America turns into something else entirely. Actress Marin Ireland plays an immigrant from Ireland who overstays her visa, then marries her American boyfriend so she can live here legally. But her green card application gets lost in the maze of the immigration system. This is where her story takes a very dark turn.
September is when my travel papers going to expire. June, I was very violently, sexually attacked on the subway.
The attack generates news. She discovers that because a terrible crime has been committed against her, she's able to get a green card quickly. This prompts her to reflect on her marriage, a marriage of convenience.
I didn't even need to do that.
She says, I didn't even need to do that.
I obviously did.
I obviously did.
Yeah, I wasn't attacked at the right time.
An audience member gasps, and then another, and another. She jokes that she wasn't attacked at the right time. The entirety of the room seems to sit with the weight and black humor of what's just been said.
There are so many moments that I'm just like, you couldn't write that.
Anna O'Donoghue is the artistic producer and literary manager at the American Playwriting Foundation, which produces the Verbatim Salon. She says the performances feel different because they're drawn directly from the words and mannerisms of regular people.
People are so much more eloquent spontaneously than they are when playwrights try to create eloquence.
The series has been meaningful for the performers who give voice to the words of immigrants. These include the actress Marin Ireland, who you might have seen in the TV shows Homeland or Sneaky Pete. She performed at that show in January when anti-immigration enforcement protests were raging in Minneapolis.
Hearing all the stories now of people coming out saying, like, they're pulling people out of their homes, they're going door to door, and the idea of door to door feels very frightening and familiar to a lot of people.
She says at this moment in American history, many artists have struggled to find ways to be of service. For Ireland, the Verbatim Salon was the answer.
I've never felt more useful than when I've done this kind of thing, and so I was so excited. I hope to be more and more a part of it if they let me in whatever capacity, front of house, whatever. I'll do anything. I just really believe in it.
The next Verbatim Salon takes place on Tuesday at Theatre Row. Arun Venugopal, WNYC News.
It's In Season, our weekly segment where we tell you what's fresh and affordable at local farm stands. Amelia Tarpey is the program and publicity manager for Grow NYC Green Markets. She says it's the season for rhubarb, sometimes called the celery of the dessert world.
Rhubarb is actually technically a vegetable, and it's found in greens and pinks. It sort of has like a nice range from a light green to electric pink to like a deeper red color. Most of the time, it's going to be sold with those leaves chopped off. However, if you ever come across them with the leaves attached, just know that the leaves are toxic for consumption. They're very high in oxalic acid, so do not eat the leaves. Rhubarb and strawberries are it's a match made in heaven. So, of course, you think of strawberry rhubarb pies and strawberry rhubarb jam. Spoon that over yogurt or ice cream. Have it with granola. I love doing a rhubarb upside down cake. You can slice it and arrange it to make a really beautiful quilt-like pattern. Because of its tart flavor, it also pairs really nicely with meats. So you can do like a really tangy, punchy rhubarb chutney and pair that with chicken. Also, it's really classic to do a pork chop with a nice rhubarb sauce over the top. Perfect spring meal. It's such a fun seasonal item to play with, so definitely encourage everyone to get it if you see it.
Amelia Tarpey is the program and publicity manager for Grow NYC Green Markets. She says rhubarb is going for about $6 to $8 a bunch, or about $7 to $9 per pound.
WNYC is supported by the Tribeca Festival, returning June 3rd through 14th, featuring live tapings of the New York Times Cannonball with Wesley Morris, On with Kara Swisher, and more. Tickets at tribecafilm.com.
Every day, WNYC is working to get closer to New York and to New Yorkers. The underwriting we get from businesses helps power our independence. Learn how your organization can join in at sponsorship.wnyc.org.
Inflation and imports.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Ninja One, unifying IT operations for businesses globally with solutions to support IT resilience and operational efficiency. Unify IT, simplify work, Ninja One.
From Marketplace, I'm Nancy Marshall-Genzer in Washington. First, President Trump is headed back to the U.S. after a summit with Chinese leader Xi Jinping. Trump and other administration officials said China agreed to buy more American products, but the deals are light on specifics. Marketplace's Henry Epp reports.
In a Fox News interview, President Trump said Beijing will buy oil from the U.S. and said Chinese leaders agreed to buy 200 Boeing jets. Meanwhile, U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer told Bloomberg that China committed to buying more American agricultural products. That includes 25 million tons of soybeans per year, an amount previously announced by the White House late last year. So far, though, Beijing has not confirmed specific new purchases of oil, jets, or American crops, according to multiple media reports. But in its official statement on the talks, the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs said economic and trade meetings this week, quote, produced generally balanced and positive outcomes, and it said China will open its door wider. I'm Henry Epp for Marketplace.
We got another read on prices yesterday. For more, we're going to turn to Gus Fauché. He's chief economist at the PNC Financial Services Group. Gus, yesterday we saw increases in the U.S. import and export price indexes. How much of that increase was caused by the war in the Middle East?
Well, about one half of it was, but we saw an almost 2% increase in import prices. But even taking out petroleum, we saw import prices increase about 0.7% on the month. That's an indication that the price pressures we're seeing in the economy are not coming only from oil, but also from other goods that are having difficulties in transmitting through the Strait of Hormuz, but just general inflation throughout the U.S. and global economies.
Inflation fears are getting bond traders' attention. Bond yields are up. What's going on there?
It's a couple of factors. Some of it is expectations that the Fed might hike, higher inflation that we're seeing in the U.S. economy and concern that gets spread over the longer run. But also, I think a lot of it is coming from large federal government budget deficits. There's no indication that anyone in Washington has any intention of deficit reduction. And so if the federal government is out there borrowing trillions of dollars every year, that's putting upward pressure on borrowing costs as well. So all of this is contributing to these higher long-term interest rates that we're seeing in the economy.
Well, at least it's Friday. Gus Fauché, chief economist at the PNC Financial Services Group, thank you so much.
Thank you, Nancy.
Let's do the numbers. The Dow, S&P, and NASDAQ futures are all down in the range of 0.6 to over 1%, with the Dow down 302 points. The 10-year Treasury yield is down at 4.53%.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Viking, committed to exploring the world in comfort, offering a small ship experience with a shore excursion included in every port and onboard cultural enrichment. Discover more at Viking.com. And by GEP, working to help companies optimize value and reduce risk with the AI-native GEP Quantum Intelligence Procurement and Supply Chain Platform.
U.S. natural gas exports are expected to grow 30% over the next year and a half. That's according to the U.S. Energy Information Agency. That growth is driven mostly by new and expanding LNG export projects along the Gulf Coast in places like the sleepy beach city of Corpus Christi, and at a time when roughly 20% of the world's natural gas supply has been taken offline because of the war in the Middle East. Marketplace's Elizabeth Troval has more on U.S. LNG growth and what it means for the global energy market and coastal economies.
I want to take you back to the day before the U.S. bombed Iran, February 27th at the port of Corpus Christi. President Trump stands in front of a crude oil tanker and blue signs that say American energy dominance.
Slashing energy costs is among the most important actions we can take to bring down prices for American consumers.
But on that late February day before global oil and gas prices soared, he also boasted about liquefied natural gas exports increasing so much they're at
the highest level in American history and going up a lot.
That's true. And Corpus Christi is one of the hubs on the Gulf Coast where LNG exports are growing. I went down to the port of Corpus Christi a few weeks ago where CEO Kent Britton told me business is booming.
LNG shipments this year are actually up about 40% over the same period last year.
That's as more natural gas is piped down from West Texas and New Mexico.
There is a lot more gas to be discovered easily in the Permian than oil. LNG is the growth story of the next decade.
Ross Waino with S&P Global Energy says the U.S. is now exporting roughly 20 billion cubic feet per day of LNG.
Up from basically zero a little over 10 years ago. So it's been a massive increase. The U.S. is now the largest supplier of LNG in the world, with plans to grow significantly more over the next 10 years.
Waino says a lot of that LNG is sold to utilities in Asia, and that business boosts local coastal economies, says Jesse Thompson, an economist with the Dallas Fed.
We had a huge amount of investment in the Gulf Coast economy in terms of just the equipment and manpower and construction. And then the plants themselves, a much smaller footprint in terms of total labor, but they are very high-wage jobs.
The question now is, will this war bring even more investment? Ross Waino again.
These buyers may be interested in finding a more secure source of supply that could encourage them to sign up for a contract potentially in the U.S. But I will note that the U.S. is also facing concentration risk.
Having so much LNG come out of the Middle East has proven to be risky. The U.S. has its own risk. Think hurricanes and politics. So LNG buyers may choose other sellers like Canada or Algeria, or move away from natural gas altogether.
High LNG prices, the risk of this large portion of global supply getting cut off, and just price volatility in general are not good for demand creation.
If the countries getting hit hard by today's energy crisis decide to use less natural gas than they planned, that could ultimately hurt the new U.S. LNG plants in coastal communities like Corpus Christi. I'm Elizabeth Troval for Marketplace.
And in Washington, I'm Nancy Marshall-Genzer with the Marketplace Morning Report. From 8 p.m., American Public Media.